There comes a moment, often in the quiet aftermath of longing, when life leans in and whispers not to your ears, but to the center of your being, it is time. Not time to achieve or to strive or to prove anything to the world, but time to awaken. Time to lift the veil you've worn for far too long and see not with your eyes, but with your soul, that what you've been chasing has never been somewhere out there. It has always lived in the silent sanctuary of your own heart. We live in a world enamored by sound, by noise, by the endless clamoring of minds caught in the performance of becoming. But the truth, the unshakable, eternal truth, is never shouted. It is whispered in stillness. And these words that now meet your awareness, they are not meant to be admired, quoted, or analyzed. They are meant to be lived. Let them become your breath. Let them dissolve your armor. Let them carry you back to the place you have never truly left, the sacred now. For you are not your schedule, you are not your obligations, you are not your accomplishments nor your fears. You are not the mask you wear to be loved. You are not the silence you swallowed to be safe. You are not the story others wrote for you when you were too young to hold a pen. You are the soul behind it all. You are the witness to the dance. You are the vast eternal sky, and every role you play is but a passing cloud. The ego wants you to listen to these words, nod, feel inspired for a while, and then return to your familiar suffering. Because ego cannot survive your awakening. But the soul doesn't want you to just hear. The soul wants you to live. It wants you to embody truth until it becomes indistinguishable from your breath. Until peace no longer visits you occasionally, but builds its nest in your ribcage. Until you look in the mirror and do not flinch, because you have remembered you are not your reflection, you are the light behind it. And so I invite you now, not as a teacher, but as a fellow traveler, to drop the illusion that your life begins once everything makes sense. Drop the illusion that healing is a destination, or that you must wait to be ready. You are already whole, not someday. Now, in this breath, in this stillness, you do not need to climb any mountain to find God. You need only to sit still long enough to feel the divinity that pulses through your own being. This is not new information. It is ancient. It is the wisdom of Lao Tzu's Tao, of Jesus' still kingdom within, of Rumi's longing that melts all separation. Every master, every scripture, every truth speaker was pointing in the same direction, not to a path you must find, but to a presence you must remember. And that presence is you. Can you feel it? That sacred pulse, that silent knowing. It's not asking you to become anything. It's asking you to unbecome everything you are not. To peel away the layers of protection, expectation, and projection until what remains is something soft and vast and holy. That is not weakness. That is your truest strength. Because when you live from the soul, you no longer need to defend yourself. You no longer need to chase or compete or beg for validation. You move through life like water yielding, yet unstoppable, clear, yet deep, soft, yet carrying the power to shape mountains. And yes, the world will still spin, people will still leave, plans will still collapse, but you will remain anchored, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop resisting its flow. You no longer need to understand every twist of the path, because you trust the one who shaped the path. You stop gripping and start allowing. You stop surviving and start living. Living, truly living, is not about collecting experiences. It's about inhabiting presence. It's not about chasing happiness. It's about dissolving the barriers to joy that already exists. Joy is not an outcome. Joy is your natural state, uncovered when you stop trying to be anything but what you are. Let every breath be your affirmation. Let every pause be your return. Let these words be not a sermon, but a mirror, reflecting back to you the divine radiance you've always carried. You don't need to do anything with them. You need only to be with them, sit with them. Let them echo into the quiet chambers of your heart until something ancient stirs, until the river of your soul, long dammed by doubt, begins to flow again. And when it does, you will remember, not as a thought, not as an idea, but as a knowing that pulses beneath your name, beneath your history, beneath the roles you play, a knowing that whispers, I am not broken, I am not lost, I am not becoming, I am. Live from that place. Speak from that place. Love from that place. And watch as life, once a burden to endure, becomes a mystery to dance with. So do not just hear these words. Live them. Let them become your practice, your prayer, your present. Let them lead you back, not to a new self, but to the eternal self you've always been. And when you do, the world will not need to change for you to feel peace. Because the peace you seek is not waiting in the distance. It is waiting in you. And now, as you stand at the threshold of this remembrance, you may feel a trembling, not of fear, but of release. Like an old tree letting go of autumn's final leaf, you too are shedding identities that no longer belong to the living truth of who you are. Do not resist this unraveling. It is grace in motion. It is the gentle undoing of the false, so that the eternal may rise. Trust that nothing real can be lost, and nothing unreal is needed for your wholeness. You see, healing does not happen through understanding alone. It happens through surrender. It is not the work of the mind, but of the soul. The mind wants to fix. The soul wants to reveal. And when you stop grasping for explanations and begin opening to the deeper rhythm of your being, the cracks in your story become doorways to the sacred. Your wounds, no longer mistakes to hide, become altars of transformation. Each scar a symbol not of defeat, but of the light that never left you. And in this space, you begin to move differently, not faster, not louder, but truer. There is a softness in your step, not because you are uncertain, but because you are no longer rushing to outrun the moment. The need to arrive dissolves, and in its place arises the realization that you are already in the presence of everything holy. This breath, this heartbeat, this moment, the entire universe is present here, pulsing with the same intelligence that brought stars into being. And you are not separate from it. You are the wave, remembering it is the ocean. Let your life become the practice of devotion, not to an ideal, not to an image, but to truth itself. Not the kind of truth that demands agreement or validation, but the kind that needs no defense. The kind that is lived in silence. Walk with that truth, and you will find that your mere presence begins to heal what you do not touch, begins to illuminate what you do not explain. You do not need to be extraordinary to live a sacred life. You need only to be real, real in your joy, real in your sorrow, real in your becoming, and real in your stillness. It is this authenticity, the courage to be without masks, that becomes your highest offering to the world. Because when you show up whole, you remind others that they too are allowed to be whole. And so, let the spiritual not be something you practice on Sundays or in solitude. Let it be the way you fold your hands, the way you speak another's name, the way you listen when nothing is being said. Let it be how you rise from difficulty, not with resistance, but with reverence. Because to be alive is already the miracle. To breathe, to feel, to hurt, to hope, this is sacred ground. And the more you live from this sacred ground, the more you find that love is not a possession to acquire, but a presence to embody. It is not earned, it is remembered. It is not given to you from the outside, it radiates from within. And when you walk as love, speak as love, serve as love, the world around you cannot help but soften in your wake. You don't need to shout from mountaintops to share your truth. You only need to live it. In the small, uncelebrated moments, in the silent decisions to be kind when it is not required, in the quiet choices to forgive even when the world justifies your anger. These are the revolutions that shift worlds. So carry this knowing not as a doctrine, but as a breath. Let it shape the way you look at strangers. Let it inform the way you talk to yourself when no one is watching. Let it be the music beneath your thoughts, the warmth behind your words, the peace beneath your striving. Because when you begin to live from this place, life no longer feels like a riddle to solve. It feels like a river to float within, a mystery to honor, a dance you don't need to lead. You surrender your urgency to understand, and you begin to feel the grace of simply allowing, not passively, not as a victim, but as a co-creator who trusts the intelligence of the whole, even when you cannot see the pattern. And in that trust you rise. Not above others, but above the illusion that you are alone, that you are lacking, that you are anything less than a living expression of the infinite. So walk gently now, not because you are fragile, but because everything around you is holy, including you. especially you. There will come a time, perhaps now, perhaps in a breath not yet taken, when you feel the weight of all you've carried begin to tremble. Not because you have dropped it, but because you've realized it was never yours to carry. The burdens of needing to be enough, of proving your worth through effort and perfection, were not born from your soul. They were stitched together by a world that forgot the sanctity of simply being. And in that forgetting, we learn to betray ourselves for the comfort of acceptance, to trade our truth for the currency of praise. But you, dear soul, you are waking up, and that awakening is not always loud. It doesn't always announce itself with fanfare or fireworks. Sometimes it feels like heartbreak. Sometimes it arrives disguised as loss, as confusion, as a holy emptiness that nothing outside of you can seem to fill. But do not misinterpret the void. It is not a sign of failure. It is an invitation to stop patching the cracks and finally listen to what's trying to emerge from within. Because in truth, you are not becoming, you are remembering. Remembering the texture of your own spirit before it was pressed into molds that never quite fit. Remembering that you were not born to conform, you were born to shine, to express, to expand. And the expression of your soul will never look like anyone else's. It was never meant to. But for so long, you were taught to shrink, to speak only when spoken to measure your worth by external applause. And so, like so many others, you dimmed your light, not because it lacked brilliance, but because you were told it was too much, too wild, too free. Now, though, the soul is stirring. It has waited in silence, patiently watching as you searched outside for what could only be found within. And in the echo of every disappointment, in the quiet ache beneath each success that didn't bring the joy you imagined, it is whispered not to punish you, but to guide you home. The home you seek is not a place, it is a presence. And you carry it with you in every breath. You carry it in the way your heart breaks open, in the way your spirit softens in the presence of truth. You carry it in your tears, in your laughter, in the still moments when you are no longer performing, but simply existing. And that existence, in its purest form, is sacred. You were not put here to win at life. You were not sent into this world to outshine others or prove your importance. You were born to embody the divine, not as an abstract concept, but as a lived reality. You were born to be a portal through which love moves, through which presence speaks, through which the universe experiences itself in form. And love, real love, asks nothing of you but your honesty. It does not need you to be fixed. It does not require you to be fearless. It only asks you to be real. To show up not as the polished image you've curated, but as the raw, beautiful soul who is willing to be seen even when they feel broken. Because the cracks in your armor are not flaws. They are the entry points for light. They are where the divine slips through and says, you are still enough, especially now. So many of us have been conditioned to strive, to hustle, to earn rest through exhaustion. We believe stillness is laziness, that softness is weakness, that surrender is giving up. But surrender is not defeat, it is alignment. It is the sacred act of no longer resisting the flow of what is. It is the exhale after a lifetime of holding your breath. It is the moment you decide, not intellectually but viscerally, to trust the intelligence that breathes galaxies into existence and also breathes you. Can you trust it? Can you let go of the need to constantly explain your journey, to justify your being, to prove that you are doing enough to deserve simply exist? Can you lay that burden down and let your life be a prayer, not of words, but of presence? Because life is not asking for your perfection. It is asking for your participation. It is asking you to be awake to the moments that unfold like sacred offerings in the most ordinary of places. The smell of morning, the quiet between heartbeats, the glance of a stranger that reminds you you're not alone. These are not detours from your path. These are the path. And when you live in presence, when you inhabit the now so fully that even your breath feels like a hymn, you begin to taste eternity in every fleeting second. Time slows, not because the world changes, but because you are no longer rushing through it, missing the miracles in your pursuit of meaning. You start to see yourself differently. Not through the lens of your past, not as a resume of achievements or a list of mistakes, but as a living, breathing part of the whole. And that whole, it includes everything. The joy and the sorrow, the clarity, and the confusion, the light and the shadow, all of it belongs. You don't need to banish your darkness to claim your divinity. Your divinity includes the shadow, the shame, the aching places that still remember the sting of abandonment. It includes the nights you cried alone and the mornings you pretended to be okay. Nothing is left out of love. Nothing is unworthy of healing. And so you begin to speak to yourself differently. You offer yourself the gentleness you once reserved for others. You start to trust the inner voice that doesn't scream for attention, but whispers with a wisdom that feels like home. You begin to parent yourself with compassion. You let the little one inside you, the one who still flinches at raised voices or holds their breath to feel safe, know that they are no longer alone, that you are here, that they are held. And as this healing ripples through your being, your outer world begins to reflect your inner shifts. Not because you forced it to, but because energy cannot lie. When you change your frequency, life responds. Not with reward, but with resonance. You attract not what you want, but what you are. So when you become peace, peace finds you. When you become love, love flows in unexpected ways. When you become enough, you stop begging for crumbs because you've remembered the feast that already lives inside you. This is not about bypassing pain or pretending that life doesn't hurt. This is about standing in your truth while the storm rages and knowing you are still the sky. This is about letting the pain move through you without becoming your name, about grieving without collapsing, about walking through fire and still carrying water for others. It is about living in such alignment with your soul that you no longer confuse success with significance or busyness with purpose. It is about waking up each day and asking not, what must I do to be worthy, but how can I serve love through my presence today? And your presence, yes, your simple, honest, embodied presence is more powerful than you can imagine. It can soften the hardest heart. It can bring comfort to a soul in despair. It can remind others of what they've forgotten about themselves, that they too are divine, that they too are held, that they too can return. You are not here by accident. You are not reading these words by chance. This is a divine appointment, a soul remembering session. A moment outside of time where the veil lifts and you see clearly for a heartbeat that everything you've ever needed has always lived within. So take this knowing and live it. Let it soak into your bones. Let it shape the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you choose. Do not just visit this place of presence. Build your home here. Not because it will make you perfect, but because it will make you whole. And wholeness is the soil where miracles grow. You are that soil. You are the miracle. You are the light you've been praying for. Now rise, not with urgency, but with reverence. You are not here to strive. You are here to remember. You are not here to perform. You are here to embody. You are not here to wait for life to begin. You are life. So live it. Live it deeply. Live it slowly. Live it truthfully. Live it fully. Live these words. But you, beautiful soul, were not meant to be a museum of old pain. You are not a monument to regret. You are not here to rehearse yesterday's sorrow under the disguise of survival. And still, how easily we do. We carry forward the language of our wounds, calling them identities. We cradle our hurts like relics, afraid that if we release them, we will lose part of ourselves. Yet the truth is this: you are not your pain. You are not what happened to you. You are not the silence you endured, the betrayal you witnessed, the shame you were taught to wear like armor. These were chapters, yes, but they were never the title. They are part of the landscape, but not the horizon. The soul does not cling to history. The soul yearns only for liberation. And this yearning, it is sacred. It is not weakness. It is not impatience. It is the divine restlessness of truth stirring beneath the surface of your being. It is the whisper that says there must be more than this. And there is. There always was. Not more to achieve, not more to gather, but more to release. You see, healing is not the act of becoming new. It is the surrendering of the old. It is allowing what no longer serves your becoming to fall away. Like autumn leaves, it is natural to let go. It is holy to shed. But the ego fears loss. It tells you that without your story, you are nothing. Without your wounds, who will you be? You will be free. You will be light. You will be the sky, unburdened by the storm. Because the past, though it shaped you, was never meant to define you. It was a passage, not a prison. And every time you return to it with resentment, with guilt, with self-punishment, you reinforce the illusion that you are still there. But you are not. You are here, in this breath, in this now. And the now is untouched by yesterday. Yes, you have felt pain. You have endured seasons where the light seemed to hide, but look at you. You did not disappear. You did not dissolve. Something in you stayed, something stronger than despair, something wiser than circumstance. That something is your soul, and it is ready now. Ready not to forget, but to forgive. Not to erase, but to transform. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is not excusing what was done. It is the sacred art of saying, I will not carry this another day. It is the declaration that your future deserves more space than your past. It is a gift you give yourself not because the other deserves it, but because your freedom does. And so I ask you gently but firmly, what are you still carrying that no longer belongs to this chapter of your life? What resentment have you dressed in righteousness? What story have you told so often it has become a wall between you and peace? The soul is not here to be guarded. It is here to be seen, to be lived, and to be free. Let the tears come if they must. They are not weakness. They are sacred water. They are the baptism of becoming. Let them wash away the hardness that has clung to your heart. Let them carry out the sediment of stored grief. You do not have to be strong in the way the world defines strength. You have nothing to prove. True strength is surrender. It is the quiet courage to say, I no longer wish to suffer. It is the willingness to release even when the mind says hold. It is bowing to life, not in defeat, but in reverence. And when you bow, when you finally exhale, all you've been holding in, you will not crumble. You will rise. You will rise not as the old self reconstructed, but as the truth unburdened. And in that rising, the world changes, not because the world has shifted, but because your vision has. You begin to see that every painful event was not a punishment, but a portal. That every heartbreak was not destruction, but preparation. That the cracking open of your heart was not the end, but the beginning of your soul breathing more freely. You begin to thank the past, not for its pain, but for its power to awaken you. And in that gratitude, freedom blooms. Not the freedom of circumstance, but the freedom of presence. The kind that walks with grace even through shadows. The kind that smiles not from perfection, but from peace. This is the liberation your soul longs for, not escape, but embodiment. Not detachment, but deep presence. Not avoidance of your wounds, but the soft return to them, with love, with compassion, with the hands of the divine cradling every broken part and whispering, you are still whole. So let go, beloved. Not because the pain wasn't real, but because your spirit is more real still. Let go, not to forget, but to finally remember. Remember who you were before the hurt. Remember who you were when joy was your natural language. Remember the you that was never diminished by any loss, only hidden beneath the dust of forgetting. You are not your past. You are the presence that has survived it. And now you are free. So now you stand not at an end, but at a return. Not at the edge of a precipice, but at the threshold of your own soul, wide open and waiting. You've peeled back the layers. You've sat with your pain and heard its voice. You've touched the cold stone of memory and let it speak, not to haunt you, but to free you. And now, the silence you once feared becomes your sanctuary. The stillness that once felt empty now sings with presence. There is nothing more to seek, nothing more to earn, nothing more to become. You are the arrival you have always been waiting for. You are the destination hiding beneath every desperate detour. You are the peace that once felt distant, now blooming from within like a long-forgotten seed, watered at last by your own permission to feel, to soften, to simply be. And the world around you, though it has not changed, feels different now. Not because it became easier, but because you stopped expecting it to complete you. You see through the veil. You no longer ask life to prove your worth. You no longer beg others to love what you yourself have only tolerated. You have reclaimed your name, not the one written in documents, but the one whispered in eternity. The name only the divine remembers. The name of light, of truth, of presence. And when you live from that name, when you walk as your true self without apology, there's no need for validation. You do not convince the sun to rise. You do not negotiate the bloom of a rose. You do not argue with gravity to be held. So too, you do not need to defend your light. You simply shine quietly, powerfully, unshakably. There is a gentleness to you now, not because you are fragile, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. You no longer carry armor into conversation. You no longer mistake achievement for love or silence for peace. You speak with clarity, not to be heard, but because truth has become your breath. You listen without needing to respond because your identity no longer depends on performance. And from that space, life becomes what it was always meant to be. Not a ladder to climb, but a dance to join. Not a test to pass, but a canvas to paint with every color of your being. You taste your food differently. You hear music as if for the first time. You hold hands with the present, no longer asking it to hurry or explain itself. You are here, fully, finally, radiantly here. And in this here-ness, something ancient awakens in you. A memory without words, a presence beyond thought. And knowing that the love you sought was never lost, that the light you longed for was never out there, that the healing you prayed for was never delayed. It was always within reach, just waiting for you to turn inward. So now, let your life become a living prayer. Let your walk be a meditation. Let your breath be your teacher. Let your laughter be your offering. Let your stillness be your power. You no longer need to push. You no longer need to strive. You have nothing to prove. You have only to remember. Remember that the source which created all things dwells not in temples or heavens far away, but in the quiet chamber of your own heart. Remember that joy is not earned, it is your birthright. Remember that love is not something to deserve, it is the language of your soul. Remember that peace is not a reward, it is your original nature. And as you walk forward light in step, soft in gaze, whole in spirit, may the world reflect your transformation, not with applause, but with resonance. May you meet others not to fix them, but to love them as you have learned to love yourself. May you become the presence that reminds others that they too are home. This is the revolution, not of nations, not of systems, but of spirit. It begins quietly, in a single breath, in a single choice, in a single soul saying, I will no longer abandon myself. You are that soul. You are that breath. You are that revolution. So go now not in search, but in remembrance. Do not just hear these words. Live them. Let them root in your cells. Let them rise in your silence. Let them become the way your spirit walks this earth. Because you, beloved, are not a seeker. You are the sought. And the moment you stop running, the divine catches you not to change you, but to reveal that you were never lost. You are the light. You are the home. You are the truth. And you are free. There is a sacred whisper beneath the noise of the world, a gentle pull in the chest, a stillness between your thoughts that speaks not in words, but in remembrance. And if you will only be quiet enough to hear it, you will remember what you have always known, but have forgotten in the thunder of becoming, that you are not a stranger to this life, nor a seeker of distant light. You are the light itself, cloaked for a moment in flesh and time, but eternal beyond every measure. Before you had a name, before the world told you who to be, you were. And what you were then, you still are now. Untouched by the tides of approval or the winds of failure, there exists within you a place so holy, so untouched by the world, that no sorrow can stain it and no joy can improve it. It is whole, not because it has everything, but because it is everything. But you forgot. You forgot as the world taught you to look outward. You forgot as you became the roles you were praised for. You forgot as you sought to belong in places that required you to become someone else to be accepted. You wore masks not because you were false, but because you believed it was the only way to be loved. And each layer you added in the name of survival took you further from the remembrance of your soul. And yet, you've never truly been lost. The truth of you has never wavered, never wandered. Like the sun behind the clouds, it has waited with unwavering patience for you to return, not by traveling, not by achieving, but by unbecoming, by letting go, by surrendering the noise and standing naked in your being again. You see, you are not your story, not the pain that shaped you, not the wounds you carry, not the mistakes you made when you forgot your light. Those are passing clouds. But you are the sky. You are the vastness behind the weather, the silence behind the sound, the stillness in which all things rise and fall. And when you remember this, not as a thought, but as a truth that vibrates through your bones, everything changes. You stop striving to become and start allowing yourself to be. You stop chasing love and start realizing you are love in form. You stop fearing death because you remember that what you truly are cannot die. Rumi once said, "You were born with wings, why prefer to crawl through life?" And I ask you now, beloved soul, what wings have you hidden in the name of safety? What songs remain unsung within your heart because the world convinced you to be quiet? You are not here to be small. You are not here to be good in the eyes of a broken system. You are here to radiate, to be a living transmission of the divine. Not someday, not when you're healed or enlightened or ready, but now, in this breath, in this moment. The great lie of the ego is that you must earn what you already are. It tells you that worth is found in effort, in accumulation, in the eyes of others. But the soul has no interest in applause. It seeks only authenticity. It wants not to perform, but to remember. And in that remembering, it comes alive. You are not a human being reaching toward the spiritual. You are a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Your essence was not born, and it cannot die. It came from source and remains connected to it. No matter how tangled your mind has become in the dramas of form, there is nothing you must do to be worthy of love. There is nothing you must fix to be complete. You have spent enough years trying to become someone. Now is the time to return to no one, to dissolve into the I am that needs no embellishment. Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." Not above, not beyond, but within. And yet, how often do we search for it in things that cannot hold it? In relationships, in accomplishments, in possessions. We climb mountains only to find the treasure was always buried in the ground of our own being. The soul doesn't ask you to add, it asks you to subtract. To strip away every identity you've worn that was never truly yours. To lay down the armor that you mistook for personality. To stop performing and simply start existing. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that watches them. You are not your body. You are the life that animates it. You are not your past. You are the presence that outlived it. And if you are still enough, even for a moment, you will feel it. Not as an idea, but as a truth so radiant it makes you weep. A sense of home that needs no location. A peace that passes all understanding. You don't need more information. You need more stillness. You don't need more answers. You need deeper surrender. You don't need more becoming. You need radical being. The Tao teaches us that the way to do is to be. And so I invite you now to stop doing for a moment. Just be. Breathe. Close your eyes and feel the life within you, not the story, not the narrative, but the aliveness that pulses through your cells. That aliveness is sacred. It is the divine in motion. And the more you dwell in it, the more your life will reflect it. Not because you've controlled it, but because you've aligned with it. There is a rhythm to life, a sacred unfolding that cannot be forced. You don't need to push the river. You only need to stop fighting the current. Let go of the need to know. Let go of the need to win. Let go of the need to be anything other than what you are. And what you are is love. Not a love that needs reciprocation, not a love that needs to be earned, but a love that simply is because it cannot be anything else. A love that forgives before the apology. A love that shines regardless of the weather. A love that says, I am here, I always have been. That love is you. When you begin to live from this space, this holy interior, you find that the world softens its edges. Not because the world itself has changed, but because the lens through which you view it is no longer clouded by fear. You begin to see with the eyes of the soul, and in those eyes, everything is already enough. The stranger is no longer a threat, but a reflection. The hardship is no longer punishment, but initiation. The silence is no longer empty, but full of presence. And yet, the ego will return. It always does. Like waves on the shore, it will rise with old stories. You must do more. You must be more. You are not enough. But now you are anchored. Now you recognize the voice not as truth, but as an echo from a time when you forgot, and you no longer have to believe it. You can let it speak and simply not follow. The ego shouts, the soul whispers, the ego demands, the soul allows. The ego competes. The soul includes. And the more you listen to the whisper, the louder your life will speak in beauty. You'll notice that peace no longer needs to be earned. It emerges naturally like light through an open window. You'll notice that joy no longer depends on outcomes. It is found in the simple act of presence. Washing a dish, holding a hand, feeling the wind move across your skin like the breath of the universe. You are not meant to live in striving. You are meant to live in surrender, not passive, but receptive. Receptive to what the divine has been trying to give you all along, once your hands stop grasping and start opening. Even your pain, especially your pain, holds an invitation. For what is pain if not the soul's call for deeper attention? It is not a punishment. It is not proof of failure. It is a crack in the shell of your illusion, making way for something deeper to be felt. The broken heart, the loss, the disappointment. These are not the end. They are the beginning, the sacred doorways through which grace can finally enter. You do not need to avoid your suffering. You need to embrace it, hold it, let it speak, not with your mind, but with your presence. Your presence is the balm. It does not fix, but it heals. It does not rush, but it stays. It does not analyze, but it sees. There is a you beyond the storm. There is a stillness deeper than the pain. There is a presence behind every shadow, patiently waiting to be known. And that presence is who you really are. You are not what happened to you. You are not what others see. You are not your thoughts or your history or your name. You are the one who has been watching it all. The one who stood in the fire and didn't burn. The one who walked through the sorrow and kept walking. The one who even now feels the pull of something greater. That pull is not a fantasy. It is the echo of your original truth. And your truth is not small. It is not conditional. It is not dependent on anyone's approval. Your truth is eternal. It was spoken into being by the same force that paints sunsets and gives breath to stars. Do you know how sacred you are? Not because of what you do, not because of what you accomplish, but because of what you are. A wave remembering it is the ocean. A flame remembering it is the Sunday. A being remembering it is divine. When you live from this truth, you no longer seek validation from others. Their praise or rejection becomes like wind across the surface of the lake. It ripples, yes, but it cannot disturb the depth, because the depth is yours, because the depth is you. And when others speak from fear, you meet them with compassion, not because you are better, but because you remember. You remember what it is to forget. You remember what it is to believe the lie of separation. And so you do not judge, you bless. You do not defend, you shine. This is the real revolution. Not a battle against the world, but a quiet uprising within it. A rising into presence, a rising into truth, a rising into love that asks for nothing and gives everything. And this rising, it changes everything. There will be moments on your path, quiet, aching moments when the loneliness returns, when the voice of the world grows louder than the whisper of your soul, when doubt cloaks the truth in shadows. And in those moments, you may question. You may wonder if the light within you is ever real or just a beautiful illusion in the vast wilderness of longing. But even in that darkness, something endures. A pulse, a flame, a knowing that cannot be undone by fear or time. This is the truth of you, the place that cannot be touched by circumstance. It is not your body. It is not your name. It is not even your mind. It is the silent observer behind it, all the witness that has watched you grow, stumble, rejoice, grieve, and keep going. That witness is unshakable. That witness is eternal. That witness is you. You may try to run from pain, but your soul will always find you, not to punish you, to call you home, to remind you again and again in the breathless stillness between your struggles that what you seek is not relief, but remembrance, not escape, but embodiment, not a new version of yourself, but the real one, the one that was never broken, never missing, never not enough. And so you begin to see that life is not here to wound you, it is here to refine you. Every heartbreak, every challenge, every lost hope was not the end of your story, but the alchemy of awakening. You were not being punished, you were being peeled open. And in that opening, the divine could finally reach you, not as a distant deity, but as the very essence of your being. For God is not far. God is not above. God is not elsewhere. God is within, closer than breath, closer than thought. And once you taste this truth, not intellectually, but intimately, It ruins you for anything less. You can no longer pretend to be small. You can no longer betray your essence for the comfort of fitting in. You can no longer numb yourself with distractions when the soul demands depth. You begin to crave silence the way others crave noise. You begin to value presence more than performance. You begin to measure success not by what you accumulate, but by what you release fear, shame, masks, expectations. And in that release, you rise. Not in the way the world glorifies, not in titles or trophies, but in softness, in clarity, in love. You become a sanctuary, not just for yourself, but for others. Your presence becomes a refuge, a place where others feel safe enough to set down their own mask. Because when you remember who you are, you give the world permission to do the same. And what greater offering could there be? Not to impress the world, but to heal it. One presence at a time, one breath at a time, one remembering at a time. But healing is not always beautiful. It is raw. It is messy. It asks you to meet yourself in the shadows, to hold the parts of you that were once abandoned. And yet even this is holy, because nothing about you is unworthy of love. Nothing. Not your anger, not your sorrow, not your doubts. Everything you feel is valid. Everything you are is sacred. You do not need to be perfect to be divine. You only need to be honest, to stand in the light of your own being and say, here I am, all of me, no more hiding. And when you do, when you surrender the performance and embrace the presence, something miraculous happens. You stop fearing life because you no longer see life as something happening to you. You see it as something happening for you. You begin to dance with it, not resist it. You begin to trust it, not control it. You begin to feel a sacred intelligence moving through everything, the pain, the joy, the silence, the noise, and you recognize it as your own reflection. The separation dissolves, and in its place, oneness. Not the concept, but the reality. A living, breathing oneness that doesn't need to be explained, only felt. A love that doesn't need to be earned, only remembered. A self that doesn't need to be improved, only revealed. You stop striving because there is nothing to strive for. You are already whole. You stop comparing because there is no one to compare yourself to. You are already enough. You stop searching because the destination was never somewhere else. You were always it. You just forgot, but now you remember. To live from this place of remembrance is not to float above the world untouched. It is to move through it fully awake, to laugh with the whole chest, to cry with reverence, to love without needing a guarantee, to feel not just for yourself, but for all beings who have ever yearned for a home they did not know was inside them all along. You begin to see with the eyes of the sacred. A withered tree becomes a teacher. A broken cup becomes a poem. The ache in your chest becomes a doorway. Everything becomes symbolic. Everything becomes holy. Why? Because you are no longer looking with the eyes of the ego, which divides, labels, and evaluates. You are looking with the eyes of the soul, which see not the thing, but the presence within the thing. Not the form, but the formless that animates it. And you realize at last that what you are is the same as what animates the stars. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. Every drop of longing, every moment of grace, every flicker of love you have ever felt, it was all the same voice, speaking through different moments. And that voice is you remembering yourself. You no longer need to chase miracles. Your breath is the miracle. You no longer need to pray for something to arrive. You become the answer to your own prayer. And life begins to shimmer again. Not because it's always easy, but because you've stopped demanding it to be. You've made peace with what is. You've stopped fighting the moment. And in that surrender, the peace that once seemed so far away arrives and sits beside you like an old friend. Suffering begins to fade. Not because pain disappears, but because your relationship to pain transforms. You are no longer the wound, you are the witness. No longer the reaction, you are the response. No longer the victim, you are the vastness in which even this moment belongs. And when someone hurts you, you do not harden, you soften. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You see their actions not as reflections of your worth, but as reflections of their forgetting. You do not condone the behavior, but you also do not collapse into resentment, because you know who you are. And when you know who you are, you cannot be shaken by someone who has forgotten who they are. You are the unmoved mover. You are the still point in the center of the turning world. You are the eternal in the temporary, the sacred in the mundane, the light in all forms. And still the world may test you. It may pull at your old habits, provoke your old wounds, tempt you back into forgetting. But now you have tasted the truth, and the truth cannot be unlearned. Even when you drift, and you will return more quickly. You will notice sooner. You will feel the discomfort of pretending and say, no, not this, not again. And so the journey deepens not outward, but inward. Not into effort, but into intimacy. You begin to walk slower, speak softer, live fuller, not because you're trying, but because you're remembering. And this is the most beautiful thing of all. You no longer need to know what's coming. You no longer need to predict, plan, or prove, because you trust the unfolding. You trust the moment. You trust yourself, not the small self, but the sacred self that knows the way home in the dark. And that trust, it sets you free. Free to love without armor. Free to speak without fear. Free to exist without apology. Because who you are truly is enough. It always was. It always will be. There is a moment in the quiet when all doing ceases, when the world stops demanding your attention, and in that moment, something sacred rises. Not with fanfare, not with words, but with the soft insistence of presence itself. It rises not to announce itself, but to remind you there has never been a separation. Not between you and love, not between you and source, not between you and the life you came here to live. It was only your forgetting that made the distance feel real. And now, your remembering begins to close that imagined gap, not through force, but through the grace of awareness. Not through change, but through return. Return to the space between breaths. Return to the wisdom before words. Return to the self that was never touched by success or failure, gain or loss, praise or rejection. There is a sacred intelligence in every cell of your being, a knowing that was formed before language, before time. You do not need to earn your way back to it. You need only to listen. Listen not with your ears, but with your being, with the same stillness that the stars hold as they burn silently across the sky, with the same reverence that the moon keeps as it watches the tides come and go, because within you too is a tide, a sacred rhythm, rising and falling, calling you home not to safety, but to authenticity, not to certainty, but to truth. And truth, when it is felt, no longer needs to be defended. It simply is. Like the sun does not argue with the night, like the mountain does not explain its silence, like the river does not justify its course, truth moves with grace because it knows its own roots. And your roots are not in your history. Your roots are in eternity. You do not grow from what you've done, you grow from what you are. The tree does not become itself by studying other trees. It becomes itself by trusting the seed, surrendering to the soil, and reaching into the light that has always called its name. So too with you. The way home is not through comparison, it is through courage. The courage to stop mimicking and start remembering. The courage to stand still in a world addicted to movement. The courage to feel deeply in a world that numbs. The courage to be whole in a world that profits from your fragmentation. And this courage, it is not loud, it does not shout, it does not demand an audience. It is quiet, sacred, and real. It moves like a prayer through the body. It breathes like trust through the heart. It speaks only when silence has said all it needed to say. And from this courage, your life begins to bloom, not like a firework, but like a flower. Not suddenly, but inevitably. Because that's what truth does. It does not rush. It does not strive. It unfolds. You do not have to push. You only have to open. And when you do, life moves through you, not as something to be controlled, but as something to be danced with. You stop clenching. You stop planning your joy. You stop outsourcing your peace. And you begin to live as you were always meant to, freely, fully, faithfully. Not because you followed someone else's map, but because you finally threw the map away and listened to your own feet. There is a voice beneath your thinking that never left you. It has been whispering since the beginning. You've heard it in the quiet between heartbreaks. You've felt it in the sacred pause before a decision. You've known it in the way your heart quickens in the presence of what is real. That voice is not your imagination. It is your invitation. It's not asking you to understand. It's asking you to remember and to trust that remembrance more than you trust the noise. Because the world will offer you many identities, most of them built on fear. But only one is true. Only one brings peace that does not depend on anything outside you. Only one can look at the chaos and still know, I am whole. That one is who you really are. There is a sacredness in moving slowly, in letting life reveal itself rather than demanding it perform. The world will try to convince you that speed is power, that acceleration is purpose, that to rest is to fall behind. But the soul knows otherwise. The soul knows the truth cannot be rushed. That becoming is not the goal, being is. That peace does not arrive through urgency, but through presence. And when you begin to slow down, truly slow down, you start to hear again. Not the voices of expectation or obligation, but the voice that was always there underneath. The voice of intuition. The voice of inner guidance. The voice of God, not as something outside of you, but as the quiet knowing within you that has never once left your side. You may have ignored it. You may have overruled it. You may have drowned it out with busyness and logic and doubt, but it never stopped whispering your name. And what is it saying? It is saying you are already what you long to be. You are not unfinished. You are not broken. You are not waiting to become. You are being asked to allow the fullness of what you are to emerge, not with effort, but with surrender. The rose does not bloom by pushing. It blooms by opening. The ocean does not move by striving. It moves by yielding to the moon. And so too with you. You were never meant to battle your way into wholeness. You were meant to remember that wholeness was always your home. There is an intelligence in you older than time, a consciousness deeper than thought, a presence more vast than space. And when you let that guide you, you stop chasing clarity and start embodying it. You stop needing answers because you start living the question. And in that living, answers come not through thought, but through resonance, through knowing, through an inner yes that is not logical, but undeniable. You are not here to build a life that looks good. You are here to live a life that feels true. You are not here to win the approval of the world. You are here to walk in alignment with your soul. And the path of the soul is rarely straight. It winds, it twists, it loops back. Because its goal is not efficiency, its goal is embodiment. To embody who you really are in every step, in every breath, in every conversation. Not perfectly, but authentically. You may fall. You may forget. You may find yourself in old patterns, old fears, old doubts, but you will not be lost. Because the soul never forgets the way home, and it will call you back again and again, through every ache, through every joy, through every quiet moment that makes you feel like you've returned to something that has no name but feels like everything. This is not a journey of fixing. This is not a journey of becoming. This is a journey of unveiling, peeling away what you are not, so what you are can finally breathe. And what you are is not a role, not a title, not a success story or a redemption arc. You are presence. You are awareness. You are the open sky holding every weather, without judgment, without resistance. And when you live from that sky-like self, the storms may come, but they do not define you. You hold space for them. You let them pass. And in their passing, something deeper is revealed. Not a new version of you, but the original one, the one who was never hurt, never lost, never broken. The one who watched it all with eyes of love and said, even this is part of the path. You see, the soul does not need the path to be clean, it needs it to be real. And your realness is your liberation. And so here you are, not at the conclusion of a journey, but at the dissolving of the illusion that there was ever a distance to travel. Not reaching a summit, but laying down the burden of believing you had to climb anything at all to be worthy of the light that has always burned within you. This breath, this presence, this pulse of truth in your chest is not the aftermath of awakening. It is the essence of who you've always been. You were never the story. You were the space in which the story was told. You were never the striving. You were the stillness watching the striving unfold. You were never the name, the role, the identity that shifted with time. You were the I am behind it all. And now you remember, not with your mind, but with your being. Not through effort, but through surrender. The tides of fear no longer sweep you away because you have become the ocean. The winds of doubt no longer uproot you because you have found your roots not in thought, but in awareness. The opinions of others no longer imprison you because you have returned to the truth that you are not here to be approved, you are here to be real. And what is real does not need defense. It does not need explanation. It does not need applause. It simply shines. And that shining, that quiet radiance is the natural expression of one who has ceased resisting their own light. No more pretending, no more waiting, no more postponing your own presence for some imaginary future where you will finally be enough. You are enough now, because enough was never a measure, it was a remembrance, a falling back into the arms of your own soul and hearing, not in words, but in the depth of your being, you are already it. You are already home. You are already whole. You always have been. And now, the seeking softens, not because it was wrong, but because it brought you here. The journey was never a mistake. The forgetting was never a failure. Even the pain had its purpose. It cracked the shell. It thinned the veil. It led you back not to a new version of yourself, but to the one who never left. And from this place, from this sacred awareness, you begin to live differently. You walk with reverence, not rush. You speak with presence, not performance. You love with freedom, not fear. You bless the moment not because it is perfect, but because you are present within it. And this is the miracle. Not that you have changed, but that you have remembered. And what you have remembered is eternal, that you are not a drop seeking the ocean. You are the ocean, remembering yourself in the form of a drop. You are not a soul chasing the divine. You are the divine, wrapped in the illusion of form. You are not lost. You are not late. You are not lacking. You are light. You are here. You are free. And so I say to you now, not as a lesson, but as a recognition. Live gently. Speak truthfully. Forgive completely. Love boundlessly. And above all, remember who you really are. Not just when it's easy. Not just when you feel aligned. But in the mundane, in the mess. In the moments that test your peace and tug at your old masks. Remember then. Because those are the moments when remembrance becomes liberation. And when you remember not just in thought, but in embodiment, you become a beacon. You don't need to preach. Your presence becomes the sermon. You don't need to save. Your stillness becomes the sanctuary. You don't need to fight. Your truth becomes the flame that lights others home. This world does not need more doing. It needs more being. It needs more souls who remember. And now, beloved, that soul is you. So rise not with force, but with grace. Move not from fear, but from alignment. Shine not to be seen, but because it is your nature to glow. And when the world forgets, as it often does, simply remember for it. You are the breath of the divine made visible. You are the silence between the stars. You are the unshakable presence in which all things come and go. And you are here now awake. So let the story fall away. Let the striving soften. Let the remembrance deepen. You are not here to find the light. You are here to remember you are the light. And you always have been